Thank you so much, and very good morning to everybody. I'm very happy to be part of this August group of speakers. So today I have been mandated with speaking about intravitreal injections, some tips and tricks. So I'll keep it short, and I'm happy that I'm not having to go into a lot of data and a lot of statistics because it's quite difficult to present, and all the previous speakers have done a great job. So now that we know how to, when to give, in whom to give, how many to give. Now it's sort of time to dive into how to actually do it. So I'll quickly discuss some tips and tricks how you can do it successfully. So I have no financial disclosures, and all these ideas are solely mine. So I think the overall outline that I thought I'll discuss with is how to counsel the patient, that is, convince the patient of the need for injections, and what will be lost if they don't take injections. Then a bit about sterilization, injecting in the OR itself. Then a little bit about loading the drug and some do's and don'ts during that. Then of course preparing the eye with disinfectants, etc. Then a bit about anesthesia and how to make it as painless as possible. And lastly, the actual injection procedure, which quadrant and how, and other things. So we'll quickly look at these. The first thing is counseling. I think it's important to explain the pros and cons of therapy to patients, and we now already are aware of all those that go into decision making with Dr. Parveen and Dr. George have very nicely elucidated all of those. But I think it's important, sort of the crux of it is to get across to the patient that we are looking to stabilize vision, may or may not improve always. So the primary aim is to stabilize vision, and sort of the 1/3 rule is applicable especially for neovascular AMD, which has come out from the 7UPS study that Dr. George was also mentioning, that about a third of the patients continue to lose vision whatever we do. A third of the patients actually maintain vision, and a third of the patients improve vision. So the earlier we begin, and the more number of injections we do, the better the chances of are that patient will be in the best third. And so I think that works a lot, and a lot of patients actually, do come around and agree to take the injections. And of course, the regimen, we need to explain to them right at the beginning that the treat and extend is the most favored amongst most of us now. And also, if not taking treatment, they should understand that vision loss is irreversible, because I think a lot of patients don't realize what it means to actually protect what they have, and everybody looking at improvement, but it's also a very big deal to protect what you have. Like Dr. Talwar was also telling us that a lot of patients will continue to lose vision even if they get treated. So it's a no-brainer that vision loss is going to happen, and it's going to be reversible, especially when we talk about neovascular AMD, and not so much for diabetic retinopathy maybe. Then also a little bit about financial planning with patients, I think helps quite a bit. So the cost of injections, insurance coverages, which are now available by majority of insurance providers, especially when insurances have been renewed after October 2020. And there are some schemes from manufacturers where the cost of injections actually goes down, and of course the total number of injections of patients need to plan for all these 5 or 6 or whatever that may be. So I think these things are, I think, important to get across while counseling. Then talking about sterilization, so I think it's imperative that we inject in the OR only and not in the OPD, like in the West. A lot of people do that, but so OR preparation has to be same as any other intraocular procedure. I think that is a very basic and minimum. And autoclaving can't also be neglected. So a full cycle autoclave to prepare your instruments, just like you would for any other cataract surgery or any other intraocular surgery, is also imperative to minimize risk of infections. Then the instruments needed for are relatively simple. So you need calipers to measure distance from the limbus. You need a speculum to keep the eye open. You need gauze, and you need sterile buds, and that's about it. And the role of preoperative antibiotics, I think it's not recommended anymore, and there is no evidence that the risk of endophthalmitis reduces. So preoperative antibiotics are not really recommended. Then I think it's important to load the drug before taking the patient inside the OR. So I think we need to confirm the drug, that we are giving the drug that was promised to the patient, the batch number, its expiry date, the temperature that was maintained. So these are some non-negotiables that we should do. So I have a checklist that I go through. Then the instruments that you should have with you. So a speculum and caliper must be there. The syringe, the needle to draw, the drug from the vial, that is a much thicker needle, about 18 gauge, and the injection to inject the drug, that is a 30 gauge needle. So all of this must be in front of you. Then load the injection into the syringe, so measure exactly 0.05 ml that is to be injected, and attach the needle to be used, get rid of all the air bubbles and all of that. And then think about whether you want to use a microscope or an indirect ophthalmoscope, and see that those are ready before the patient walks in. Unless we do these, I have seen a lot of people running helter skelter. Oh, this is not there and that is not there, and it can sometimes be embarrassing. So we were looking at all of this. We've already talked about counseling, sterilization, and loading the drug. Let's see about preparing the eye. So povidone iodine is really the cornerstone of preparing the eye, so that there's umpteen evidence that this reduces risk of infections, not only in intravitreal procedures but in all intraocular surgeries. So 2 applications of at least 5 minutes apart, and there needs to be sufficient contact time. So we can't really instill the drop and immediately take the patient into the OR. So a contact time of about 8 to 10 minutes is recommended. Then anesthetic drops at the same time when patient is being prepared. Again, no antibiotics are needed at this time because povidone is doing the job for us. Doctors, of course, wear masks, and there is a bit of controversy about whether patients should be wearing their masks. And there are a couple of papers recently in Retina which have shown increased risk of endophthalmitis if patients are also wearing their masks. So in COVID times, this is something that we need to also think about. So I prefer, I don't prefer patients wearing the mask inside the OR. But it's important that they should not speak at all, so that there is no release of any aerosols. A little bit about the anesthetic, we need to really make it as painless as we can. So what I also do is I take the buds and I dip them into the proparacaine solution, at least 3 or 4 drops onto the bud, and I actually massage the area of the sclera with gentle pressure, so that the conjunctiva is blanched in that area. And then I go in circular motions for about 3 or 4 times, so that that I think really numbs the area even more than just the topical installations. And I think this also helps. When you're looking to inject something like Ozurdex or something which has a larger needle, subconjunctival lignocaine definitely helps. But for routine 30 gauge injections, this is unnecessary. Then the injection procedure, of course, itself, speculum directly, and there is no need for any drape as such. This is a quick animation showing the procedure. We'll discuss some nitty-gritties about this. So points that we need to consider is which quadrant you want to inject in. If you're a right-handed surgeon, the infero-temporal quadrant, and if you're a left-handed surgeon, the infero-nasal quadrant in the left eye of the patient are relatively easy for you to access. It's important to be careful of, in certain eyes which have undergone previous conjunctival surgeries, for example, plaque brachytherapy, which makes, and a radiation retinopathy. If you're injecting, that conjunctiva is really sort of engorged, and a lot of the times it's not close to the limbus and can lead to a lot of huge subconjunctival hemorrhages. Similarly, patients who've undergone, say, previous scleral buckling and other things. So just be careful that, these are also taken care of. Then the distance from the limbus really depends upon the phakic status of the patient. About 3 millimeters from the limbus is good enough for pseudophakic patients. 3.5 to 4 millimeters is good enough for phakic patients. If you're doing ROP, it's about 1 millimeters from the limbus. Then think about the needle direction. We use the 30 gauge needle almost all the time now, and I prefer an oblique entry, like we do it for our cannulas during surgery. And once they are inside, you turn the needle towards the optic nerve head and then inject. So this is what you can also go straight into the sclera without this oblique entry. But then I've observed that there is a little bit of egress of the vitreous, and sometimes, especially in vitrectomized eyes, it can undergo hypotony suddenly. So this oblique entry, I think, helps. And lastly, think about whether you want to use the operating microscope and an indirect ophthalmoscope. So I think anterior segment surgeons may be more comfortable with using the microscope, but I think most retina specialists, inject by wearing the indirect ophthalmoscope, like I do, so that you can actually take a look inside immediately as you inject. So these are some of the points that you want to consider while you're actually injecting. There are some special situations like, say, intravitreal gas injection, where the gas should be the last that you're injecting, especially if you're doing a combined, say, a pneumatic displacement for subretinal hemorrhage or something like that. The gas should be the last to be injected. Paracentis is a must before injecting. turn the head appropriately to prevent any sudden regurgitation of the gas, and prevent fish mouthing by injecting smoothly. For ROP, again, the safer protocol is sort of a mnemonic that can be remembered, where S stands for the short needle, so it should not be more than 4 millimeters in length. So use a stopper if you can, so that it doesn't go too much inside. Then antiseptic and antibiotic use is even more important, especially in children. F stands for the follow-up, where you need to look at the eye within 48 to 72 hours post-injection to prevent any bad occurrences from happening. The extra attention is to inject 1 millimeters behind the limbus, and not 3 millimeters like we do it in adults, because these are of course small eyes. And then R stands for recheck, where you recheck for every week after injection for vascularization. So what we discussed now was patient counseling, sterilization, that is giving injections in the OR settings, loading the drug and looking at certain checklists before loading and at the time of loading, preparing the eye with betadine and some disinfection there, then some anesthetics, which makes it as painless as possible, an actual injection where you look at the quadrant, the distance from the limbus, the direction of the needle, the gauge of the needle, that is usually 30 gauge, and you think about whether you want to use a microscope or an indirect ophthalmoscope. So overall take-home message is, counsel, treat, and extend is the best protocol now. Sterilize, inject in the OR, pay attention to the autoclaving, prepare the eye with povidone and anesthetic. Actual injection, think about the quadrants, what you want to use, the scope, the microscope, distance, and the needle. And then, finally, we should all have happy patients and happy physicians. I just completed 3 years of my private practice in Mumbai, so I thought I'll share it with all of you. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions if you have any.